Okay, my name is Teresa Bolger and I'm a consultant archaeologist with Rubicon Heritage Services. So I'm going to talk to you this afternoon for a bit about Rubicon Heritage Services and what we do, and more generally about how archaeology works in the construction process, some of the problems that can arise, how it can impact on cost, programme, and why planning for archaeology at an early stage in your project is important. Okay, first about Rubicon Heritage Services. We were founded in 2000 and we supply archaeological services to the construction industry, both public and private. We operate in both the UK and Ireland. We've based offices in Dublin and Cork and at various locations across the UK. We're specialists in a wide range of archaeological services, so we provide EIA, desk-based assessment, geophysics, excavation, consultancy, so we're kind of a full-service company. We're also the only Irish company that is accredited with both the Institute of Archaeologists of Ireland, IAI, and also the Institute for Archaeologists in the UK, so we're accredited with the professional bodies in both jurisdictions. We've worked with a comprehensive range of public and private sector clients, from large construction companies, local authorities, small private builders and developers. And from that experience, we have a wide range of experience we can bring to bear on different issues that can arise in relation to archaeology in the construction process. Now, why is it important to get good advice? You're looking here at a whole series of headlines from the UK and Ireland, and the one thing all of these problems have in common is that at some point, early in the project, somebody kicked the can down the road with archaeology. They kind of went, "Oh, we don't really need to think about it now, we'll think about it later." And what happened later is things went wrong. They had major discoveries that got in the way of the construction programme, that caused delays, that derailed their projects. We were came on board for two of these projects. One of them was the Doneraile road realignment in County Cork. In that instance, you're looking at the realignment of the Doneraile road. At an early stage, they should have done more archaeological testing. They didn't. As a result, they didn't find the castle site, which turned up at construction stage. We were brought in to manage the excavation of that, and luckily we were able to liaise with the statutory authorities and manage the excavation through to a successful, cost-effective conclusion. But, you know, ideally, it shouldn't have been a last-minute decision. Similarly, the Archaeology site there, that's again another road realignment, this time in County Kildare, a major cemetery site. We were looking at a situation where road realignment was delayed cumulatively for maybe 10 years, and they had tremendous problems getting the archaeology closed out in it. Two different companies dealt with it before us, and we were brought in at the very end to try and bring the whole thing to a successful conclusion, finish the analysis of the site, get the whole thing reported and into publication so they could draw a line under it and say this project is done, this road is clear, all the obligations have been met, you know, we can kind of put it to bed. When do you need good archaeological advice? I mean, it's a very simple rule of thumb. Early, as soon as possible, at the start of your project. There's no point delaying it, there's no benefit to it. And the kind of sites that you need good advice for, well, pretty much any kind of development site, whether it's greenfield, brownfield, any construction site can have archaeological issues, and that's why you need to talk to an archaeologist at an early stage as possible. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that the legislation requires that you deal with archaeology. The National Monuments Act protects known archaeological sites and also unknown archaeological sites. The Planning and Development Acts require that if you are developing a site, you have to deal with any archaeological issues in relation to that development under the same polluter pays principle you deal with other environmental constraints. So that leads to you having conditions in your planning permission that require you to deal with archaeology. So if you're not on board and getting on top of the archaeological issues in relation to your development at an early stage, you're just storing up problems for yourself down the line. As I said, you know, one of the things that early advice allows you to do then is it gives you options. I mean, the problem sites I talked about initially, Doneraile, Ardree, those were sites that went to full archaeological excavation. If you start dealing with archaeology at the pre-planning stage, at your design stage, then you have more options. So you can start to explore things like avoidance, minimum impact design solutions. You're not then committed to a full archaeological excavation because you've already decided what you're going to build. You've got planning permission. You're now tied into something. If you get advice at an early stage, you have more options as to what you do and how you manage archaeology, which can be both effective in terms of cost and program. Companies like ourselves, we will work with you. We're very happy to work with you to try and ensure the best possible outcome for your development. We will use our knowledge and experience to try and, if you bring us in at an early stage, we'll use our knowledge and experience to guide you to the best possible outcome. And why is it important from a business case? It controls risk. I'm dealing with current projects for 2 clients where we've been brought in at an early stage. In one case, we were brought in before the client bought the site. They were looking to expand their premises into an adjacent property, and they brought us on board. They actually got us in to get some advice before they purchased, to find out, because they knew there were some archaeological issues. They knew they were in an urban site. They knew there was possibly a historic site on the area that they wanted to buy. So by getting the advice from us at purchase stage, when they put in their tender bid to buy the site, as part of their back of the envelope calculations to say, how much is this going to cost us? What's the bet? What price? What's our limit? Where should we stop for purchasing this site? As well as the cost of development, they were actually factoring in the costs that they would have to put in place to deal with the archaeology, the costs they were going to have to put in place in terms of desk space assessment, possible excavation. And they were also thinking in terms of their building design at that stage and how to minimise their impact. If they did go into the site, would it be practical for them to still build if the archaeological risks materialised and kind of became real actual risks that they had to deal with in their development? So this is one of the reasons why early stage intervention can really help. It's a small upfront cost, but it saves you money down the line, because you're dealing with a slight delay in your design as opposed to a delay in the middle of your construction program. So you're asking your architect to take an extra month to think about his design, rather than asking your construction contractor, who's a crew of 20 or 30 on site and however many machines, could he wait a month and just hold off while you sort this problem out? Which is going to cost you more money. I can tell you now, it's going to be trying to solve the problem at construction stage. As I said again, early stage advice, it helps you avoid unexpected delays. I said I've another project I'm dealing with at the moment. Again, it's at planning stage where we're trying to unite a series of buildings together. And we know we've got upstanding archaeology, and we're already, before we've got planning permission, talking to the National Monument Service and the local authority on behalf of the client and negotiating a design through for them. So when they get their planning, they're going to have most of their archaeological issues resolved through preservation in situ, and they're going to know exactly what they have to deal with at construction stage. There aren't going to be any sudden and unexpected surprises on this site. So from that point of view, getting good advice early can be the difference between success and failure. I mean, if you have a tight margin, suddenly having to deal with an archaeological issue that you didn't expect or had decided not to want to expect can be the difference between looking at your bottom line and going, this was a great project and went well, we made a profit, and this is not a great project, it went badly, we barely broke even, and we're possibly making a loss. Again, the conflicts can happen. If you discover archaeological issues late in your development, it brings you into conflict not only with your subcontractors or contractors working for you on site. It can bring you into conflict with statutory authorities, whether that's your local planning authority or people like the National Monument Service, who then become stakeholders in your project and have to be kind of dealt with, managed, brought on board, their concerns met and realised as well. The other thing to think about is that if you've got a plan for archaeology from day one, instead of being the negative that many people see it as, and the negative headlines of this thing is stopping this development, this thing is holding me up, it can then become a positive PR thing for you. You can turn it around and spin it. The National Roads Authority, as well as Transport Infrastructure Ireland as they are now, have become very good at this over the years. They learned the hard way through expensive project failure and having really high profile archaeological sites turn up at inconvenient times in major infrastructure projects, and they've built archaeology into their early stage design. They use it as part of the community outreach, so they feed the results of the discoveries and various road schemes around the country back into the local communities as part of kind of positive reinforcement of look at the good we're doing, look at we're feeding this information back into the local community, building goodwill and good feeling alongside the roads that they're building. So they're using it as part of that. So where you have archaeological issues identified early, you can often find ways to build that into your development and make it work for you. If you're building a hotel or a pub and you have some upstanding archaeology, rather than trying to hide it, you can incorporate it and make it part of a feature of your development that then becomes your own little in-house tourist attraction, your own little bit of thing that can attract people into your property or your premises. So, looking at it very briefly, there's an archaeological workflow through from consultancy all the way through to kind of community outreach, and it mirrors the construction process as well, from kind of pre-planning and design stage to completion and use. And the way we work as well, as I said, what I'm talking about here is in these early stages, consultation, assessment, evaluation, plugging those in at the preparation, design and pre-construction stage means that by the time you come to construction and what we call resolution, which is archaeological excavation should you happen to need it, means that by the time you get there, you've planned for it, you've scoped for it, you've minimized it down to what is absolutely essential to facilitate your development, and you know what you're dealing with. It's not an unexpected surprise that's suddenly kind of throwing you for six in the middle of your project plan. So again, this is just going through the different stages, kind of consultancy, assessment, remote sensing, evaluation or watching brief. These are all stages that can be implemented very early in the design stage. Consultancy and assessment we can do at any stage, whether it's pre-purchase, pre-planning, mid-design, and at any point there. Remote sensing like geophysical survey, it's great in certain greenfield locations. It can be very good for giving you non-intrusive way of very quickly establishing if there's a significant archaeological potential at a site, because it can tell us if there's a high potential for buried features to be present. It doesn't involve any ground disturbance. Depending on your size of the site, it may only take a couple of days to complete, so within a very short turnaround time you can have something that tells you about your potential risk. So just to kind of recap, so we've worked with a very large array of clients, the commercial sector, public sector, large roads companies, small builders, design consultants, architects. So we bring all of that knowledge and expertise to the projects that we do. We're happy to talk to you, but as I said, if there's one thing you take away from today about dealing with archaeology and construction, don't kick your can down the road. Think of it as early as possible. Consider it right up there at your early stage when you're doing your initial design, your planning, your kind of feasibility studies for what you want to build. That's the time to start thinking about archaeology. It's not something to say, oh well, if I don't think about it, it won't happen. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You need to deal with it up front and soon. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. As I said, I don't know how I'm doing for time, but thank you very much.